Welcome to Central Bank Central. I'm Kathleen Hayes. So it's just about 48 hours since President Trump made the announcement heard around the world. He has nominated Kevin Warsh to be the next chair of the Federal Reserve. U.S. markets taking it, I'd say, to a very big extent in pretty good stride. And there's a question how, of course, it affects the rest of the world. And I just have to tell a story as I introduce my next guest, Shoki Omori. Shoki Omori, I got to know when I was going to Tokyo regularly to cover the Bank of Japan. He is the chief desk strategist at Mizuho Securities. And I haven't told you this story yet, but it was so funny because the news started breaking around what, 7:30 Friday evening in the US. And then by 10, something else was announced. And I was doing different things. And it's 10:30 at night. And all of a sudden, I opened my phone and was looking at something. You, Shoki Omori, when as his news was getting confirmed, you already had an analysis out of what Kevin Warsh would mean for Japanese bonds, need for the yen, mean how it would affect the JGB. And I said, go Shoki. And oh, by the way, we had already agreed to have this conversation today. So it's a very, very fortuitous moment for both of us. It's great to see you. Great to have you back on Central Bank Central.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this whole question, the kind of a big question, because not just, but you
Right.
cover all of this. You cover central banks very closely. You are,
Mhm.
kind of part economist, part desk strategist, as far as I'm concerned. Um, what is your impression of Mr. Warsh? What do you expect him to be in terms of policy, where he goes? What are you hearing in Japan? What do people in the Japanese markets think of this?
I think basically, the first impression is he is hawkish on rates, the policy rate for central banks. But at the same time, he is also hawkish on the balance sheet reduction as well. So that is going to have an impact on bond treasuries, which means it's going to have a global spill-off effect on JGBs as well, which is very interesting right now. And so that's why, going back to what you said, I wrote a quick note on uh, the implications of Warsh being nominated on JGBs and yen.
Okay. So can I just ask you one more question? I'm interested because you did mention that he's has been hawkish in the past
Yes.
on inflation. That was back in what he went to the Board of Governors in 2006.
Hmm.
He was, and then the great financial crisis started. And even when they were cutting rates because the economy was weak, he was worried about inflation, et cetera. So in terms of let's get more specifically then, how do we start translating? How do we translate what that kind of policy is going to mean? It's too soon, of course, to know exactly what he's going to do. But you mentioned the JGBs. They've been the stars of the global global long-term bond show lately, right?
Hmm.
Very volatile, having a big impact on markets like you haven't seen in decades practically. So what again, what if you had to start saying, okay, here's what we're watching. Here, this and that with Kevin Warsh could equal this and that, say, for JGBs and for the yen.
So basically, I think in the shorter tenor of the yield curve, I don't think there's going to be too much of an impact as of now, because I don't think market participants are expecting Warsh to be dovish in the very near term. But at the same time, you have to remember that he has been nominated by President Trump, who wants a rate cut. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there is going to be a gradual shift going ahead. But in the near term, I think he will keep his hawkish stance. And I don't think there's going to be too much of a change in policy rate. So thereby, I think in terms of yen, there's not going to be much of an impact. It's going to be roughly flat. But on the other hand, I think if he talks about the cut or stronger QT, I would say I think that's going to have a really big impact on not only treasuries but the dong and JGBs, which has been really weak for the past few months.
So do you have any sense of who the markets in Japan might have been sort of leaning toward, where they sort of, or was it just, okay, that's US, that's fine. You pick one of those four people who are in the lead. Do you think there was any sense of somebody who would be the best choice for these kinds of questions, particularly when it comes to the markets, US, Japan, and these markets are very much interactive right now.
Hmm. I think it was a really hard question. It was quite unknown, and the impact on, uh, of course, markets were very hard to foresee. But I mean, ma many, I think, Japanese participants, especially who are worried about JGBs, I think were looking into who is going to be the elected uh, governor, and of course, the chair, right?
Hmm. Okay. Well, so in terms you mentioned the balance sheet. And
Yes.
that is something that Kevin Warsh,
Mm.
for many years, has been pushing to change the balance sheet, reduce the balance sheet. He thinks it's distortionary to the bond market. He thinks it's potentially inflationary.
Mhm.
So let's say he does move in that direction in some way. And again, he's not going to be sworn in if he makes through the vote
Right.
in the Senate. But and May, end of May will be when Powell has to step down. That's right around the corner. We're going to get there quickly, right?
Mhm.
So is that something people are going to be watching? Is that something else that could affect US Japan capital flows if he does make some kind of a change, if he does start reducing it?
I think so. I think it's going to have more impact than the rate cut or the policy rate change because as for the policy rates, you can kind of price in and people can kind of forecast where the Fed is heading. But as for QT, it's really hard to predict, and it's pretty much dependent on what the chair is going to say. So if the chair is going to go for a strong QT, that is going to have a significant impact on global rates, not only treasuries, but of course on Japan, which has been, I mean, correlated with the moves has been correlated with the treasuries as well.
True, 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 true. So, in terms of Warsh, data watcher, data dependent,
Hmm.
maybe ready to, if US productivity stays strong, he might even end up taking some steps to cut US interest rates.
Hmm.
Uh, does a does that have any um, discussion, any concern or welcoming in uh in US Japan trading? Is that, what when we get what it better because kind of like you don't really know what he's going to be like at this point. But would that be a plus? Would that be a minus? What do people want to see? What would kind of make them go, ooh, things are going to get tougher in trading, all these kinds of things. And again, these US Japan flows, which are very important.
I think it's going to be different between uh, currency traders and rates traders. Because for currency traders, if the Fed is going to be hawkish and if the guidance is going to be hawkish, the dollar yen carry trade, going long dollar yen trade is very simple, very beautiful, and it's you just hold it and you just can make money unless again the Fed and the Ministry of Finance in Japan goes for a rate check. If not, it's a very simple trade, and it's just you just put money in that, right? But
Hmm.
on the other hand, I think for rate traders, it's going to be harder because if the volatility is going to go smaller in the front end, and if the back end is going to be harder to trade, you just have to sit in the front end and not touch the back end, especially in JGBs, which is which is like a fire right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like a fire indeed. So, do you think the yen carry trade is in jeopardy?
Not yet. I think with Warsh being nominated, I think it gives another stability to the yen carry trade. So it goes against what Scott Bessent wants, I think, in my view. But I do kind of feel that the people are feeling more comfortable going long dollar yen again.
So, what do you think? Tell us what is your view of what Scott Bessent's view is, and how closely is that being watched in Japan? What are people hoping for? What are they fearing?
So both, I think, Scott Bessent and Japanese people do want richer yen, meaning dollar yen going down, because it causes imported inflation in Japan to go higher. And for Scott Bessent, of course, Trump wants a cheaper dollar. So uh, th both sides, I think, gain from richer yen. But with this no nomination of Warsh, I think it's going the opposite way. If you look at the current trading right now, it's going above 154, and it's trying to touch 155 when the rate check happened weeks ago. It went down below 153. So I do kind of feel that people are feeling more comfortable, but at the same time, I think households in Japan is going to bear the burden of I mean re increase in import prices of goods. So I'm not really sure who's. I mean, investors will feel confident, comfortable, but I'm not really sure if the Japanese household will like it if dollar yen goes above 155 again.
Hmm. Wow. And of course, I remember years ago when I was going to Japan, it was down around 110. Oh, people got, oh, it's getting
Yes,
so weak, but it went to 120, right? So
yes,
it's such a different time, but it's a lot of things are different now. And of course, inflation. And that makes me think also, though, of the prime minister, Sanai
yes.
Takichi, and the snap elections that's coming up. And people were kind of, a lot of people were kind of surprised. She's a bold new prime minister. The Shinzo Abe protege, this has become a kind of an older story now, but she's really made a big splash, right, in Japan. And all these things are very closely intertwined because this snap election will give her more power if she gets the majority, if she brings the LDP, the ruling party, into a stronger position, that gives her more space to do what she wants to do. So what are people expecting now? What do markets want to see? What do Japanese people want to see? Again, that's just days away. She was riding the wave, seemed very popular. People thought, maybe she's pulling back a bit. But you were just telling me that it's looking pretty good for her. So what are market participants? What are people saying they think is going to happen, and how will that play out?
Obviously, markets want to see more fiscal spending from the government because that will boost equities, uh, and that will give confidence for the risk market in Japan, and that's always good for approval rates, right? For politicians. I think that's what the government wants. And of course, household in Japan would want prices to go down, so they would want subsidies. But the hard part is going to be the rates. It's not equities, it's not dollar yen, it's not household, it's about rates. Because if the Minister of Finance alongside with the government is going to issue more bonds for investors who are the majority of the buyer, excluding the BOJ. It's like 60 to 70% of JGB buying. they will be afraid of buying JGBs. And if we don't get support, the buyers of JGBs from foreign investors, we are going to be in trouble again. So that is what the rate markets, but the other market participants, I think, um, currency traders and equity traders are watching.
Hmm. So in terms of the foreign investors, uh, what what do you think is likely to happen there? What is the um, it's a delicate balance because if you do want to spend more money, yes, you have to raise the money somehow. You sell bonds.
Yes.
Um, but doesn't Japan, don't Japanese people already own a lot of their own bonds? And isn't
Hmm.
that something that kind of puts a cushion around that so that maybe with some movements or some shift away they'll still be there as buyers. And you saying actually though that it's going to be the foreign JGB buyers that are going to maybe determine just how much of an impact this has then more broadly on capital flows, more broadly on capital flows within and outside of Japan and between US and Japan.
Well, I think so. If the foreign investors don't feel confident in buying JGBs, yields will go higher, as we saw last year, and of course this year as well. And if the volatility is to go up in JGBs as well, other countries are going to feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable as well, because that is going. I mean, now that we don't have yield curve control, we don't have negative interest rate policies. Yield curve just goes up and down, especially in the back end of the JGB curve, and that has been really worrying the Minister of Finance, and they have been reducing the issuance, but still that is not working in my view. And if the Minister of Finance can't find real buyers,
Mm.
it's just going to be really hard for them to issue long end bonds. So
Well,
the funding is going to be really difficult for the Minister of Finance and the government as well.
I'd like to remind everybody who doesn't follow the Bank of Japan closely all the time that that was one of the big shifts from Governor Kuroda, who was
Hmm.
10 years, the very aggressive um, BOJ chief who pushed, people will give him credit for pushing Japan out of a deflationary period over 10 years, getting it back on track. So the new governor has taken over, Mr. Ueda, and he's been able to start normalizing, getting
Right.
off at zero, getting off these very low rates. But one thing that also went away was this continual purchase of JGBs, of long-term bonds, to control that part of the market and therefore its impact on the economy and more. So, what does this mean for the BOJ now? What do you expect? Do you expect a response from them? Is this a case where the BOJ is going to be, pay, kind of more closely cooperating with the Ministry of Finance. It's like our
Mhm.
Treasury Department, very powerful. There's just so many parts here because I think a lot of there was a lot of concern that, geez, if Takichi comes in and starts spending lots of money, that's going to put these kinds of pressures on Japan. Even though she wants to do it because she wants to growth to be faster and she thinks this is what Japan needs.
Right. I mean, that is true. And she thinks that if growth is stronger than debt growth, debt to GDP ratio will obviously go down. And that is a good sign for where Japan is on debt issues. So I think she has a different mindset than the old-fashioned, so to say, economist and Minister of Finance. So this is making things very interesting, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes, but at the same time, investors are thinking in a different way as well. I mean, growth is important. Tax revenue is important because that could be a funding source for more fiscal. But all investors are thinking about the what if scenario. What if Japan doesn't grow? What if just that growth just stagnates? And I think this upcoming election is really going to be a key on how Takaichi is going to lead the fiscal policy going ahead and how she is going to control the debt issue. So I think investors are really cautious now ahead of the auction. Sorry, ahead of the election. But as of now, I think people are on the cautious side because she is a fiscal spender.
So why will it make a difference? In what way will it make a difference? If she has a very strong victory, for example, you're still going to
Mhm.
have the same question about whether or not foreign investors are going to buy JGBs. You're still going to have these questions about whether growth is going to pick up. What will it mean if this new prime minister does get this strong? Is it because people will be have more confidence because she's doing so well, and maybe even foreign investors will say, "Oh no, I do want to buy those JGBs." What's the dynamic there?
I think if she gets a majority, people will think that she will have a longer regime than what people expect in Japanese politics because Japanese prime ministers change every year, basically. And if people have expectations that she will stay on her seat for a long time, I think people will start to think that she will use fiscal wisely rather than just
Okay.
use fiscal for elections. So
Okay.
that is going to add confidence for JGB buyers or debt buyers in Japan.
So I guess BOJ, Bank of Japan.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, where does this leave them? There, it seems like a lot of people are still looking for at least one more rate hike this year, maybe even more. But are they sort of then just on hold, sort of indefinitely till more of these issues are clear where they're going, what's going to happen?
I think given that the BOJ has been pressured to push dollar yen down, I do kind of feel that the key element that the BOJ have to watch is yen. So it's not really about, I mean, prices are important, but what they have been pushed into the corner, the issue is yen. So I think the BOJ will have to hike at least one or twice this year. And I mean, the markets are pricing in a really high probability, 90% at the April meeting. So I do kind of feel that the BOJ can go fast, even though
Okay.
Takaichi would want lower rates. I think the BOJ is indifferent in what they have to do to push prices down.
Okay. Well, is there any other thought you want to leave us with? What you're watching, what we're watching, what you think your biggest hope is or the biggest risk is?
I think it's going to be, I mean, going back to Warsh QT. I think that is going to be the most interesting part because I mean, in yen rates, the back end has been uh, affecting other markets as well, even treasuries. And Scott Bessent has been talking about Japanese rates. It's very interesting at time, you know. Scott Bessent talking about JGBs. It, so it's really a odd time. So I would watch. I mean, I would want investors to watch yen rates.
Yen rates
Well, yen,
and
of course.
balance sheets and
Sheet as well, yes.
QT, all of that too. Wow.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. The picture just gets more interesting all the time, if you ask me. So so glad to have you back. It's so glad to back to see you, Shoki Omori, to join me here on Central Bank Central. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
And we will see what Warsh will do, and we'll see what Takaichi will do, and we'll also see what the BOJ will do. So let's see what happens, and we can talk again.
Oh, we certainly will. Shoki Omori, by the way, as Chief Desk Strategist at Mizuho Securities in Tokyo. As I said, I'm Kathleen Hayes, and this is Central Bank Central.